We are live. Hi, Aaron. How are you? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you guys are joining from. This is Pratik. I am founder at Testlify and Webzoli and Insidia. So you can call me a serial entrepreneur. But yeah, that's what I love to do. I'm joining in from Tel Aviv, Israel. I would love to know where you guys are joining from. Put down in the chat. We will say you hello. So feel free to share where you guys joining from, what you do, what you are here to learn for, whatever you like, And Aaron, I wanna welcome Aaron, special introduction. Let me introduce you this very special guest. As I mentioned, Aaron Chazen, and our topic for today is how to hire in the age of remote work. He's a partnership manager and a global expansion specialist at Playroll. Now, Playroll is a partner of Testlify. We have partnered recently. It was possible all because of Aaron and his team efforts, who has consulted over hundreds of companies across the globe that are looking to expand their businesses globally through hiring talent on global scale. He has also presented to hundreds of companies with international hiring needs and has enabled many of them successfully hire in new regions. Now, thank you so much, man, for taking the time. I know you have busy schedule, but you made some time for our audience today. We very much appreciate it. Before we dive in, our readers would love to know how you got there to here. Inspire us with your backstory, man.
Sure thing. So first of all, hi everyone. I'm calling in from South Africa today. As Pratik mentioned, my name is Aaron Chazen, and I'm sure you can see it in the description there below. And I'm the partnerships manager at Playroll. First of all, thanks for the opportunity to share some insights on this topic. To give everyone a bit of a background on Playroll, we're a global employer of record focused on enabling companies' global mobility. And we do this through our network of business entities in 170 countries worldwide. And through these entities and our HR tech platform, we are enabling companies to compliantly hire and pay talent anywhere in the world without the need to set up local entities. And for those of you that are not familiar with the EOR model and the employer of record model, essentially an EOR is a third party organization that hires and pays employees on behalf of a client, taking care of many of the HR and compliance related tasks involved in employment. And our goal really is to enable businesses to expand internationally without needing to worry about the legalities and the red tape involved. And we do this by taking care of all the legal compliance, taxes, benefits, and labor laws involved in international hires. And to really touch on how we got from there to here as an organization, Playroll is part of a much bigger organization called VAT-IT. And over the last 20 years, VAT-IT has built out a multinational organization and has established a presence in multiple countries across the globe. And in that time within the group, over the years, there became a demand to either relocate employees to different countries or different branches, or open up new entities and start expanding the business into different territories. And during that process, VAT-IT as a business became professionals with regards to the legalities and compliance involved in hiring employees in new territories and that type of global expansion. And this led the group to actually implementing EOR services internally for about 20, 25 years now. And with COVID and I guess the pandemic and the influx of remote teams, and something that's quite topical now, which is the great resignation and the world heading towards, I guess, the discussion today of the new norm as we know it with remote work, the
Yep.
group really saw the opportunity to leverage off of both the entities that we've established globally, as well as the knowledge and know-how that we've gained over the years of dealing with HR compliance and on an international scale. And this is really what led us to the here and now, which led to the birth of Playroll, which is now able to assist companies worldwide to expand their teams on a global scale, retain valuable talent looking to move abroad, as well as assist companies expanding into new markets. And just to end off on the intro here, something that our COO, Simonetta, who was a big part of the VAT-IT growth before moving into a role at Playroll, always says, which I think really shows the power of what we're achieving, is that it took a company like VAT almost 20 years to build an organization with teams across the world. And with
Yeah.
Playroll, we're really enabling companies to do the same in a matter of days or weeks or months, depending on how big you want to expand in terms of your global workforce. And this is what I believe is the true power behind what we're trying to accomplish and what we're bringing to the market, which is enabling companies to be completely globally mobile.
Absolutely, man. I remember that I recently did like an YouTube, sorry, not YouTube, TED Talk on the future of work. And in today's world, the future of work would look like, borderless. You don't need to be somewhere like, physically present. You can work for US companies sitting in Philippines or anywhere else in the world, and still US companies can freely hire people without any legal compliance issues. And we really want to thank you for creating such platform, engraving this kind of flexibility in this future of work. So great introduction, Aaron. Moving on, so tell us a little bit about your work at Playroll. What keeps you going?
Cool. So I think really there's two aspects of the work that we do at Playroll that keeps me going. Number one is as a result of what we've built and what we're implementing, we're enabling thousands of jobs. And without a platform like Playroll, this would not be possible. And this is really led by the idea that talent is everywhere, but opportunity is not. And Playroll is creating a platform for opportunity on a global scale. So that idea is really what drives me as a member of the Playroll family. And secondly, I like to consider myself, I know you're a serial entrepreneur. I like to consider myself entrepreneurially minded. And the fact that Playroll is enabling businesses of any size to expand globally really resonates with me as a solution to allowing businesses to grow exponentially in a very short period of time, which I think in previous times wasn't possible.
That is absolutely right. So transitioning from like remote work setting, how the remote work culture became like this new normal. Maybe you want to shed some light here.
Yeah, sure. So I think the obvious catalyst in recent times to the drive towards a remote work culture was the pandemic and the influx or the necessity for teams to go remote. However, I believe this transition is something that was in demand long before COVID, right? With the new generation in the workforce being millennials and Generation Z, and I include myself in that generation. And this generation has been enabled from a technology perspective from a very young age, and we're very forward thinking in terms of using technology for time and work optimization. And further to this, I think the transition to remote work culture really suits the modern person, right, which has led to its common adoption. People don't need to waste time commuting, getting to, they can get to be more involved in their family lives. And ultimately, in my opinion, this improves employee productivity. And this is what's driven this natural progression of how the world's move towards this new norm, is how the remote work setting really became the new remote work culture.
So I completely agree with you here because I started my business, my first business, Websoli, like 7 years ago, and it started off as an agency, and then I saw like demand for companies having to hire people abroad to save costs. And so remote setting was there, but it was done mostly manual hiring and like managing that payrolls and stuff. It was tedious process. A lot of people were involved, and again, it was not fast, effective, and easier. So I guess you made a big change in this industry. So also like I personally like love this kind of things when you make so many people's life easier in terms of hiring. Now, I want to thank everyone who's joining. I can see Rakesh, Vera Mohan, Dominic. If you are like, if you have any questions, if you just joined us, put down in the chat where you guys joining from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you have any questions for Aaron or me, put down in the chat. We'll take it along the way. So, Aaron, what do you think of HR tech making things easier for building remote teams and culture?
Yeah, so I definitely think HR tech is taking the move towards making things easier in that regard, and you can see that just by the the HR tech really exploding over the last 2 years. I think in 2021, venture investors funneled more than $12.3 billion into HR tech startups. And that was roughly 3.6 times the amount invested in 2020. And I think the reason behind this is that with companies moving towards a remote or hybrid working environment, there's so many elements to HR which need more automation and creative solutions to deal with HR related tasks, which used to be done face to face. And there are so many new factors to consider with remote hiring and remote work, which some of the examples could be like employee engagement, employee wellness, virtual onboarding, and the list really just does go on. And culture as well, how to build this remote work culture, which is a very important aspect of any company, and the approach to company culture and how that influences the employee-employer relationship from a remote perspective. So I do think that HR tech platforms are trying to solve some of the most important pain points that a remote work environment might pose to the current landscape that we find ourselves in. So definitely positive about the amount of money that's being invested into the space, and positive about the outcomes that are coming through these tech products as well.
That is crazy number, man. $12.3 billion. Wow. Four times the amount invested in 2022. You can see the amount of money being invested in HR tech space has really gonna impact how we gonna work in 2025. So definitely worth checking out this space. What are the most urgent problems that needs to be addressed in recruitment industry, that because of this big investment and stuff like that, what we're trying to solve here?
Sure. So I think specifically within the recruitment industry, from my perspective, what I've been seeing is that recruiters are often going through technology mediums like LinkedIn, and they're going after the same candidates. And what it's doing is it's causing a lot of noise in the recruitment environment. So
Aaron, am I with you? Can you hear me? Looks like we have lost Aaron for a moment. Meanwhile, he gets back. We will just try to introduce people here. Hey, Dominic joining us from England. Hi, Dominic. Thank you for joining us. And I see Vera Mohan joining us from India, and we have Maitri. Hi, Maitri. Nice to meet you. Then we have Bharat Kumar, who is joining us from India again. Welcome, guys. If you're joining us now, I would love to hear where you guys joining from. We have a guest. There's some technical error that guest is trying to get on the call. We will have him soon back on the call. But meanwhile, we are discussing today how to hire in the age of remote work, and we were discussing about our partner who is from Playroll. He has been impacting the future of work through Playroll, and Playroll is and payroll management system makes your life easier. Again, I'm into outsourcing business for a while, and it really comes handy when you want to make payments abroad to all of your employees. So making compliance issues very, very easy for entrepreneurs like us. Now, what we were discussing before Aaron just dropped off was about the tech investment in HR tech space. And companies have invested like $12.3 billion in HR tech startups. That is roughly about four times the investment that was made in 2020-22. Now, this HR tech space has blown up in last 2 years. Now, all of the investment which is coming in, there is definitely bigger problems to address in order for us to justify this investment. So with so many recruiters going after candidates through technology like Medium, One of the main problems in recruiting industry is a lot of noise, and this is just an opinion turned out to be recruitment landscapes and into employees market, right? Uh, so one second. Hey Shah from Mumbai, nice to meet you. Timely feedback is critical in recruitment. Yes, Bharat, we hear you. Uh, Now, this puts recruiters in the field position because they are now not only competing in a noisy world where it is easy for other recruiters to get in touch in the same place. Now, this is my opinion, and the most urgent matter that recruiters should be thinking about is employers and recruiters need to start thinking about how do they make themselves an attractive employer. Remote work policies is a great way to start in relevant or today's time. In order for companies and recruiters to keep up with the noise and the competition for talent on an international scale, companies should look at tapping into talent pools beyond their borders to expand their talent pool. So if you have questions along the way, I would love to hear from you. Hi Camille from Israel, thank you for showing up. We really love to hear your thoughts. If you have any questions along the way, put down in the chat. Hey Benjamin, so nice to see you here, man. Benjamin, again, I want to give shout out to Wire. Benjamin is founder of Wire. He has a question for Aaron when he gets back. So, where more precisely do you see most investment in the HR tech? We will take that question, Benjamin, as soon as Aaron joins. Before he joined, he has some bad weather, and I think because of bad weather, there is an internet issues where he's joining from. So he should join us pretty soon. Uh, uh, Hey, so Bharat also has some questions. We will definitely take that question, Bharat. I would appreciate if you be patient. Meanwhile, I just discussed next part of the topic that we are discussing. So there are a lot of innovations that are changing the world of HR. As I mentioned earlier, the huge amount of funding had gone towards HR tech, and there are many innovations that are changing the world of HR. I will touch on what I believe the three most important innovations that companies are trying to solve for the HR departments of our times, right? Since HR teams and managers are now having to find the employees through HR tech communication platform based in general, okay, HR tools that allow managers to frequently understand and care for the workforce is quite querying area is must now more than ever, right? There are some great Slack tools and Slack integration that can be used for employees recognition that also serve as a way for employees to share uh, once again, I think he's trying to get back. Just give me a moment. So Aaron is trying to join us. Has some technical errors. He is going to be back pretty soon. I hope. Just checking with him or while we speak. Just a moment. So meanwhile, if you have any questions, I would love to hear from you in the comments. One second. Hey. So, I really apologize for the inconvenience here, man. So, what we were discussing is about the innovations in the HR tech. There were world adopts the opportunity of international hiring in HR innovation and adoption of softwares that take care of HR compliance is becoming must. HR compliance software is an essential because employment laws are changing daily at the federal, state, local levels. It is great to see a reliable technical solution like payroll that can provide real time advice I'm not promoting them because they are partners, but I feel they are genuinely like solving the real problems here. And updates to HR professional that needs strong compliance support. Solutions like them are also like cost effective than meeting with outside counsel. So this is something really like um, oh, here he is. Thank you for joining us back. We do understand there was some technical error on your side. I kept audience engaged as I could, but we were missing you, man. Uh,
Sorry about that. So that was I guess it's a technical issue that you can experience with remote work. So there you
Uh,
go.
that's com- that, that's completely okay. By the time you were away, there were a lot of people who were wanting to hear from you. One of it is Benjamin Marcelli. He is a Testlify partner. He is a founder of Wire. So, where more precisely do you see the most investment in the HR tech?
So it's quite spread out. I think that it's so broad in terms of, comply. I would say compliance would be one of the main factors. There's been a lot of money invested in compliance solutions like payroll, in different niches. Employee engagement is another big thing, um,
Assessment.
and it, and talent assessment. I would say those are the top three. Those are the top three places where I think investment's gone. But because it's so broad and there's so many new challenges that we're trying to solve together in terms of like the HR tech world, it's really spread out across hiring, marketplaces, and the list just goes on.
Yep. Thank you for explaining that, Aaron. Hope Benjamin, you got your answer. And after this call, I think Benjamin and Aaron, you should connect and like be an official partner with Playroll. Playroll, like I love Aaron. So Benjamin, again, Benjamin is a great guy too. So you should connect after this call. So
100%.
there are a lot of other questions coming in. Okay, we will take along the way. Moving on, I covered like a couple of topics around while you were away. So in the past few months, talent teams have faced new challenges. Okay, fully remote hiring. One of the challenge we face right now, which was like technical error, but again, fully remote hiring. How can you hire top talent you have never met in person?
Yes, it's definitely a challenge. I mean, the first stage to get through with a candidate is, which is quite difficult with the remote interaction, is this candidate fit for the role, and do they suit the culture of the team and the company? And this can be challenging if you're not meeting the candidate in person. So I think the one suggestion that I can give to hiring managers, to HR teams, to companies in general, is there should be a more rigorous hiring process, and potentially to add one or two extra stages into the process. And this doesn't necessarily mean that the interview process needs to take weeks or months. Companies can leverage AR candidate testing tools like Testlify, for example, for candidates to prove their abilities. And from a cultural perspective, which I think is more important, I would recommend that teams take the extra step of getting the individual to meet either a person from the team that they're going to be working with, for a virtual coffee, to determine if the person would fit in from a cultural perspective into that team and into the company in general. And I think these small touches can go a long way in improving success for remote hires. And one other thing that I think could be important to focus on is, that talent teams find it difficult at the moment to get their employer brand across to the candidate. In previous times, at an in-person interview, the candidate walks in and can be impressed by a fancy office space, or maybe a nice take home gift that they get, a mug or a bottle, or even just a simple gesture of getting offered a coffee before you walk into your interview. And with remote
Oh my
hiring,
god.
impressing a candidate is not as simple as it was before. So a suggestion that I would give to recruiters is to get their employer brand across during the interview process, and that's by enticing the remote workers that you want with a strong employer brand, talking about fair compensation, or even higher than market related compensation, off-site retreats if that's a thing, remote work allowances, stipends for lunch, extended learning, and really trying to get that across in order to show what you stand for as an employer brand. And I think those are some tips and ideas to be successful when you've never met the person face to face and you're hiring them fully remote.
I'm impressed by your answer. You were thorough with it. There is a question from the audience here, and how you can improve and validate experience and skills in remote hiring. Maybe I can take this one because it's more of like assessment space.
Sure.
Uh, at the end of the day, although you are hiring a candidate, you are hiring a human. So although you take your judgments and you be emotional while assessing the candidate, but there is drawback here. If you make a wrong decision in hiring, it can cost not just the salary you will pay to that person, but it will cost a lot in terms of work which was compromised because of the wrong hire, right? Now, in order for you to validate that in remote hiring, it's tough, okay? Because that person is not sitting in front of you assessing his skills. He's like outside somewhere. He might take some help from like internet or some of his friends. Again, it's challenging. Now, at Testlify, okay, maybe I should go back a little bit and explain why Testlify was born in first place. So I'm into outsourcing, and I hire for positions every day. I speak with at least 5 to 10 candidates for a 15-minute interview, speed dating. It's tough. Again, you have to make decision for with just short meeting. How can you judge someone with just like small introductory meeting, right? It's not possible. Every time, like if somebody is coming for an interview, definitely he'll try his best to make that first impression great, right? What you want exactly is to assess his skills, not just like skills but also cultural fit, maybe cognitive abilities, all the soft skills which are necessary for them to perform the job. On top of it, they are going to assess the skills remotely, how you can make sure that they're not cheating. Now, in order for do that, we created a tool in house for us to evaluate. So my co-founder Abhishek, he had some kind of similar. He's into same outsourcing business and he has the similar use case. So we built a platform for us, and then we were using for our own businesses. And then we thought it's a great tool to help businesses out there. So we launched on a beta level. We helped a couple of hundred companies who were using on beta stage, and we got some feedbacks. We made the products mature enough to go to the market, and that's how Testlify was born. And I think that's how you can actually improve and validate your candidate experience. Also make sure that their skills are assessed accurately while hiring remote. I hope, Maitri, I gave your answer. If you have anything else, feel free to put down in the chat. We'll take it along the way. Moving on, Aaron, how can you deliver the best candidate experience remotely? Because when we speak about candidate experience, as in I've been into both side of the shoes. Before I actually got into business, I worked in few companies, and I understand how employer branding plays important role. Maybe you want to shed some light here. How can you do that better remotely?
Yeah, 100%. So I think the hiring process is the first step of the candidate experience in terms of the interview process, and I think that's a good place to start. But from a holistic view, I think it's important that companies go and define a remote hiring and onboarding policy, because at the end of the day, it's hard enough to give someone a good candidate experience when they're in person. Now, how do you translate that into a remote environment where there's lulls in communication and so on? So I think it's important to put together that defined remote hiring and onboarding policy, which in essence would be a documented step-by-step process that includes details like who's involved at each stage of the onboarding process, what needs to be shared at each stage, and what software tools are necessary at each stage of the process. So I think that's step one from a taking a step back holistic view. Um, Communication, I think, is key with the candidates, like it is with the normal onboarding process, but even more with a remote candidate, because what you're doing actually is setting the tone for the communication level required on a remote work level. So I think it's a good way to over communicate with that candidate to show them and emphasize the importance of over communication within the remote work sphere. And
Mm-hmm.
like you mentioned, I think time spent in remote screening interviews, you said, that you spend that 15 minutes. So what I would say is maybe, spending a little bit extra time, a little bit more time with those candidates to say that you can understand properly their candidate story and learn about their motivations and really, become a curious interviewer and put aside, closer to at least 30 minutes. Maybe, it's impossible with so many candidates coming through, but I think that will, provide them the feeling of, this company's really interested in me. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on that point, because you mentioned you
Yeah.
do these quick 15-minute interviews.
So this speed dating is like very initial round of the interview, because I personally feel when you're hiring for senior level positions, people are not ready to get evaluated easily before even they speak to a person. So them hearing from me one on one, understanding who they are, what they are looking for, what is our expectation, whether they can meet the criteria. So I have 10 question rule that we discuss in this 15 minutes to keep it short. So I set the expectation this will be 15 minutes, because they know that the calendar time is 15 minutes, and this 5 minutes of introduction, then 10 minutes of 1 minute Q&A. Now this helps me understand and qualify to the next round, and that's where I can offer them assessment test, so that can actually help me make better data driven decision. So I think that is crucial when you are hiring at scale. Again, there are few other use cases when you have let's say hundreds of CVs. Okay, enterprise such as TCS or KPMG or any bigger brand who are hiring at scale, they get 3 4 500 resumes for each positions. It's a lot of time for HR to go over this pile of resumes. It can take couple of days to just find out who are the best 50. Again, you have to do one-on-one interviews with them to figure out who are the best 5. So this requires a lot of time, and that's where I think Testlify can also help at volume hiring. You can assess candidates. You can actually introduce them to a video. Hey, my name is Pratik. I am head of HR at so and so, and I want to welcome you to this experience, which is mostly virtual. We'll love for you to record 30-second video about yourself and send it to us, and we'll take your application further. So this is kind of experience through AI and technology helps us reduce the time of hire, and also assess the candidates better at speed. Yeah. When we speak about hiring smart, okay. So how to make this smart hires in the age of remote work, in your opinion?
Yeah, so I've actually done, through my time working within the remote workspace, I've done quite a bit of research on this, and I think I have some great suggestions. So if there's ever time to take out your pen or your virtual pen and start writing down some notes, I think this would be it.
Here is my
Making
pen,
it.
man.
So making a smart hire in the age of remote work, I think, really starts with the interview questions. So really delving into.
Aaron, moment. If you're loving what Aaron is saying today, I would love you to just hit the share button so that we can reach more and more people. And that will be thank you gift for us for doing this insightful webinar. So please hit that like button and share button. That would be very much appreciated. Yeah, Aaron, sorry to interrupt you, man.
Fantastic. So I would say that it really starts, in terms of making a smart hire, it starts at the questions that you ask at the interview. So classic interviews are usually focused on prior work experience, behavioral questions like how do you perform under pressure, for example. And when it comes to hiring in the age of remote work, there are actually new questions and considerations which recruiters should take into consideration relating to the ability of the candidate to perform in a remote work environment. And these are questions like, are you able to self-motivate and organize? Are you able to focus in a distracting environment? Are you able to time manage without being micromanaged? And these are elements of a remote worker that are becoming more and more of a requirement. So that would be the first thing that I would say that makes you closer to hiring smart in the age of remote work. The next thing I would say is emphasize skill-based hiring, and that relates both to hard skills and abilities. For example, a developer who's a JavaScript developer, you want to test his coding skills. That's one thing. and there's various ways of doing that. But the second thing with regards to remote specific hard skills, in the job and interview process, you can, in the interview process or the job description process, you can even include some of these examples, like, have you had experience with online collaboration tools and video conferencing software? These are important hard skills that people need in order to be a a good remote worker. And have you had experience with file sharing platforms? Do you have knowledge of how to use collaborative platforms like Slack, Teams, um, you know Monday.com, for example? So these are the type of things that you can inculcate into emphasizing skill-based hiring with a remote work and remote specific hard skills objective of getting that out of the candidate. And the last thing I would say is expand your horizons. So with all these new vital considerations with remote work and the new era of work, there's one factor that's now become a non-vital consideration that should really be capitalized on, and that is candidate location. So to be successful in hiring remote employees, recruiters should really open their horizons to look for candidates who might be perfect for the job but might not live in their immediate location of the company. And that's really what the piece of the HR tech world that we're tapping into, to allow companies to expand their horizons and really hire the best talent for those roles, which I think is another factor. So I would say I'd split it into three different categories of making smart hires. Start with the granular level of the questions that you ask in the interview, emphasizing skill-based hiring, um, both normal skill-based hiring and remote-specific hard skills in the job interview and the job description stages, and lastly, expanding your horizons.
Wow, that was quite detailed explanation, Aaron. Thank you for sharing that. That reminds me of, like, something which has, like, definitely remote work has opened the door to the new approach to hiring, adapting flexible and open talent, right? What benefits of adapting this flexible and open talent? How does it access innovative to diverse skill sets beyond traditional recruiting pipelines?
Sure. So I think, yeah, it's quite a multifaceted question, but one thing that we've definitely touched on in terms of a benefit is the increased talent pool and being able to, have that flexibility of companies hiring the best candidate no matter where they're based. The second thing, as you touched on, is increased diversity. So hiring from different countries brings different cultures, different skills, different ideas and ways of thinking. And I can even see this within our team, in the partnerships team at Playroll. We have members of our team in the UK and South Africa, and this usually leads to a more creative and innovative workforce, which I truly believe in terms of the diversity. Um, the ability to service new markets, for an example, right? So if you're flexible about having an open talent pool around the world, you'll be able to service clients in their language and without any cultural barriers, for example. And that could be from a selling perspective, a service perspective, or even just a general expansion into a new market by having a presence there and testing out that market. So that would be another benefit. And lastly, I would say, from a cost savings perspective, having the flexibility to hire in different countries enables companies to look for employees in countries where salary expectations might be lower. So this is, specifically relevant to startups and scale-ups looking to cut down costs on salaries, and they could hire, for example, a senior software developer in South Africa costs around $60,000 a year, whereas in the UK, for example, it costs $78,000 a year. So there is that cost arbitrage that could be played off of, and that's really another one of these benefits of having a flexible and adapting to an open talent pool.
Absolutely. And if companies are listening from US or somewhere who are paying higher costs and want to reduce cost, I have another company that I help companies outsource and help them reduce cost. Yes, so that's the biggest pain point that startups have when they are in initial stages before they even raise fundings. So yes, definitely, like, I definitely agree on what you said, Aaron. According to Gartner, like, 74% of the companies are planning to, like, permanent shift to some degree of remote work. Why the future of talent is remote, and maybe you can share some insights here.
Yeah, sure. So I definitely agree with their outlook that the future of talent is remote, and I think the most pertinent reason behind why there's going to be this permanent shift towards remote work is the landscape of the workforce. As I mentioned before, with the millennials on the brink of becoming an overwhelming majority in the workforce, according to Forbes, I think it'll be 75% by 2025, and Generation Z entering the workforce in great numbers. The future of the workforce are people who value flexibility, and adding in another stat there, according to Deloitte's Global Millennial Survey, 67% of millennials feel that flexible working enables a better work-life balance. So, for this reason, and
Absolutely.
based on the current landscape of the workforce, I really think that this is the real reason that we're moving towards more of a permanent outlook towards remote working.
Absolutely, I completely agree on what you said, man. In the wake of like COVID pandemic, there's been like even a greater surge in talent migration and drastic increase in remote hiring. But how can you access talent, especially when you are cross borders? Your advice on virtual solutions for efficiency and future proofing?
Yeah, so look, I think to start off with, just going out there and testing out the waters, LinkedIn's still a great medium to tap into global talent pools and get access to talent across borders by specifying that the open position that you're putting out there is a remote and country agnostic role is a good starting point. And then there's also like a range of remote work jobs which companies can put open roles onto talent marketplaces. That some of which we've partnered with and been quite successful with, and all of these can be leveraged. But I think it's really about the mentality shift. I think with the technology that's around already, I don't think it's too difficult to then go and access that talent.
Absolutely. There's one thing that I wouldn't. There's I see a lot of people are asking several questions. If you have anything to add to the conversation that we are having right now, and have specific question to the things that Aaron is discussing, would love to hear from you. Thank you so much, Bharat. I see Bharat is like very active and asking a lot of questions. We really appreciate your questions, Bharat. There's one question that I will take from Bharat here is what measures can be taken to to kill. Actually, he means kill moonlighting in remote working conditions. What is your take? When people are working remotely, it's been tough. The trust issues from the employer side, and sometimes employees tend to have that side hustle. So, what's your take on this? How do you deal with such conditions?
Yeah, look, I think number one is you've got to hire the right people, and you've got to put more effort into testing the right people from different aspects,
Yeah,
and that's easier said than done. But I think it's easier to tell very quickly, early on in the relationship whether that person's really working based on KPIs, and maybe that has to do with setting, you know, measurable KPIs for specific roles, and really over communicating again to touch base with that employee, and I think you'll quickly start to gauge which employees are actually working and which ones aren't, and which are trying to juke the system. So that would be
at the
my
end of
opinion.
I agree. At the end of the day, transparency is the key. If you feel some way that your employees might be moonlighting in some capacity, you should be before even you hire them or onboard them, you should have and set expectation in the first place whether it is allowed or not allowed. It should have properly agreed on the contract while actually you're hiring. I think it's a pre-hire process which should be taken care well by any HR person. It should be pretty straightforward. But in my personal opinion, moonlighting is not a bad thing if they are working 8 hours for the hours they committed to your business, and if they are willing to do side hustle for their other hours of the day, Why not? Like, you don't own that person for life. You just like own that 8 9 hours that employee is committed to you. He has rights to grow. That's what I believe in. So maybe some might not agree with me, but I have complete freedoms to my team, and if they want a side hustle, I started my business as a side hustle. If I didn't get that opportunity, I wouldn't be here, right? So everyone has right to like do whatever things they want to do. So restricting them with something will create a bad user experience or bad employee experience, and it won't be healthy for your organization or work culture. That's what I think. Moving on, uh, there's like a data driven recruiting like buzzword around the recruiting world, right? So before we started this conversation, Aaron wanted me to have this answer. So I'll take this question. A lot of organization like feel overwhelmed with like data driven approach and all of the technology out there, feeling pressure like using ATS platforms. We are like having tools fatigue, kind of a lot of tools out there, and how to use what and what to use when. In my opinion, like data driven decision is important because at the end of the day, we are running a business, right? And business can be effectively successful only if you have data to back it up and improve. So you need to optimize. How do you optimize with some things? If you don't have data, there's no way that you can measure what mistakes you made in the past or last week or last month. You don't have any expectation for you to improve. So that's why I think it's crucially important for HR to think like a marketers. So market your own company as a brand for employers, and then like have this data driven approach. This is number one aspect. Again, data driven approach is best for hiring. As I mentioned earlier, one wrong hire can cost you a lot. If you think that it will be 1 2 3 months of salary, no, it will be a lot because it's just not costing your salary, it's costing your time, onboarding time, training time, the money wasted on the wrong hire. Again, then there will be like effect on the business. That time was missed because of the wrong hire. So that is even like bigger. So it is at least 13 times based on the research. So I personally feel hiring the wrong talent can be avoided if you like evaluate. This is not wrong hire. It's kind of like you have certain expectation for the job, right? And let's say you are hiring a full stack developer that needs specific skill set in JavaScript, right? So you should know that this person is really good at JavaScript. This is your core expectation with the hire. If it's like basic or medium level in their JavaScript skills, probably you want to find a better person who is expert in JavaScript rather than somebody who has few years rather than master who has 5 years plus experience. So it's again expectation in terms of your hiring, and evaluating that with like tools like Testlify or any other assessment platform. Doesn't matter what you use, at the end of the day assessing is important. Now, assessing previously was easier, but now we are online. We need to make sure everything which we do can be like cheat proof. So there is AI available today to make these decisions better for HR. So that's what I think. Now, traditionally, like companies were limited by geography, right? When it comes to filing open positions, remote work, on the other hand, is intentional, inclusive, allowing organization to recruit diverse candidates proactively from around the world. Do you think, like around sourcing candidates internationally will increase the time of hire, or how can one effectively in screen and source those candidates?
Yeah, so I think it doesn't have to take a long time to hire international talent, and it shouldn't really increase the time to hire. It's really about leveraging the correct softwares and implementing the right processes in order to make it an optimized process from a time perspective. So I would say number one, leveraging the right candidate sourcing tools, whether that's an internal team process or that's using marketplaces and the new resources that are out there from a talent sourcing perspective. Then from a global background check um, perspective, there's great softwares that can be leveraged in order to fast track that process. Using the right testing platforms is also important, and can if you use the right one, doesn't take a lot of time, as you mentioned. There's a lot of automation through the AR element of that. And obviously then leveraging the right global employer of record to provide the correct support from a compliance perspective, a contract perspective, and from the entire onboarding process from an EOR perspective that can be done in a matter of days, not months. So I think sourcing it from the time that you source a candidate to the time that you onboard them, if you use the right tools and correctly implement the right processes, I don't think it should add a huge amount of time onto the candidate sourcing and hiring journey.
Well, thank you, Aaron, for sharing your insights here. Camilla has a question. Considering that tech market is hot and moving at lightning speed, recruiters also need to move fast. I agree. Do you think that applying a task to validate knowledge in deeper way is still valid, especially for the younger generation? Maybe I'll take this in my way, and maybe if you want to add something, Aaron, you can. So again, I know some of the people, they kind of don't want to get into the assessment or assignments, and they want just job without giving a proof that they can perform better. Now I think if they're not serious enough for actually validating their knowledge or skills, I think they're not right fit for your company, because you don't want to risk for a candidate who is not willing to take effort to actually get evaluated. If he's serious enough, he would. So again, when you talk about tech market and we are moving fast, I would say yes, and that's the reason there is over 10 billion of investment in this space, to make things automated and make it easier for HRs to hire faster, and again with data driven decision making, and that's the whole idea, I think. But yeah, kind of I have been through your thoughts. Sometimes it's challenging for people to reply when we ask for assessments, but I ask myself, if they're not willing to do this small assignment of 10-15 minutes, are they serious enough to perform the job they will be assigned to? So automatically this is the screening, so they go away and find something else and hire the person who is very serious enough, proactive for actually taking the assignment, helping, being a partner in the hiring process. I think it makes very much easier. And we are hiring humans, so we need to also feel that they are before even they get hired, they're part of the company, and they are excited to be a new joiner and make an impact in your company. That's what I feel. Any takes on this, Aaron?
Yeah, look, I think something that we implemented within our division of the company is an actual assignment, take a home task. And I think it's really important. And I mean, if you could do some sort of element that can touch on the person's personality and culture and share that within the team, as well, I think that could also have positive effects on the decision. So, for example, if you share that with the team and they say, this doesn't look like a person that I'll get on with, their actual content might be brilliant, but then from a cultural perspective, you haven't taken that into consideration. So that's something we
Yeah.
do within our division, and something that we've been quite successful in hiring, the same type of people and people that would gel together.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. So we are almost about to end this session. If you have question or two, put down in the chat. Thank you, Bharat. We really appreciate your questions and feedback. And we will appreciate if you share this webinar to your audience or to your network on LinkedIn. So maybe before we end this, Aaron, I want to ask you one more question. Onboarding for remote workers is something that companies are still adjusting to, right? And when you're working across time zones and borders, it's important that everyone is on the same page when it comes to onboarding. How does payroll efficiently help in onboarding?
Sure, 100%. So Playroll's platform really takes care of a large portion of the employee onboarding process. Even before an employee receives an offer letter, Playroll's cost calculator, for example, can help companies project salaries, salary
Wow.
amounts, and employer and employee contributions to allow them to, figure out what do you want to put on this offer letter. And then once a candidate is, bought in and accepts an offer, our platform allows for HR teams to easily input any of the employment terms into the agreement, which is automated then into a local employment contract put together by our legal and operations team, which is then sent to the candidate through their portal. So it's really a range of onboarding activities that gets taken care of through automation through our platform. Eventually, the employee signs their employment contract live on their platform and then immediately has access to actions such as leave requests, expense claims, and downloading their payslips. And from a onboarding perspective, to have that all done within a matter of hours, which is actually possible through the platform, it gives a great candidate experience as well. So I think that's what we do from a efficiency perspective in terms of onboarding.
And I'm getting more deeper. Maybe before we add, I would like to add more couple of questions. International border still matters quite a bit when you are like handling payroll in more than one country, trying to abide by multiple sets of employment laws and dealing with taxes. How do you figure out the local laws and integrate an overall payroll system? Could you explain, in brief consideration when hiring a remote worker?
Yeah, so in brief, Playroll over the years, as a part of the group, as we've discussed, has gained this experience in dealing with employment requirements, labor laws, and such in a multitude of countries across the globe. And this, along with our in country legal counsel, as well as a full research and development team, ensures that all the correct taxes are paid and the local employment laws are kept to, and all of that research, development, experience all translates into our platform where when adding an employee onto the platform, the user journey only enables employers to add elements to the employment terms that are compliant within local legislation. So to give you an example of how the system, prevents any errors in this regard, is, for example, in certain European countries, there's a mandatory requirement of 25 days leave, right? So if you had to go there and put in 24, the system actually won't let you proceed because of the way that everything's set up in terms of the smart platform. So overall, between legal counsel that we have, research and development and experience, we've translated all of that into one platform to really solve that issue and integrate that all into one payroll system, which is quite amazing.
Wow. So our partnership, Playroll and Testlify are officially partners, and scaling your hiring process together in remote hiring. How HR tech tools can help to hire faster in the age of remote work.
Yeah, sure. So I think yeah, we're really looking forward to more collaborations in the future and working together with Testify. And as we've explored in this discussion today, there's many factors and facets to consider when scaling a team internationally. And two of the main considerations that we've touched on is number one, the correct and appropriate testing for remote employees, as well as the compliance piece of hiring these international candidates. And I think both Playroll and Testify are providing solutions to two of these very important parts of ensuring successful remote hires. And hopefully our client base and our the prospects out there can leverage both of these tools in order to be successful with regards to the international hiring and remote hiring in general.
Thank you, Aaron. Really, really appreciate your time. It was a really awesome, insightful session, and we will definitely hang out more online. and schedule more such webinars. Thank you so much, everyone who was listening today. And if you want to check out Playroll, you can get the link in the comments. One of my team members will add the link in the comment box. Again, Playroll is an amazing platform that, if you're hiring remotely, can come to a great use. So do check them out. If you are hiring actively, I think you should also check Testlify, testlify.com. And just like, or maybe message me on LinkedIn, and I'll be very happy to personally take you through a demo of the platform. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye bye.